Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Savvy session. Today, we're going to be talking about standard shopping versus Performance Max. It's not going to be as much of a versus, actually. We're more going to talk about how we're going to look at each campaign type and when we're supposed to use which one. But just to make sure we're live, just make sure everything's working, can you just put a comment in, maybe just write where you're from, make sure you can hear me. And then I'll continue to talk for the next like 15 seconds. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a tea because of the delay on YouTube. So please let me know if you can hear me. Thanks, Dan. We had no hot water this morning, so this was amazing. Awesome. Everything seems like it is good and going through. So let me just flip around here. Awesome. So today we're going to talk about standard performance, standard shopping and versus Performance Max. And then we'll also look at the same time. We are going to look at when each is best. So most of you know who we are and what we do, but just for any new ones out there, why am I allowed to sit and talk about these things? One is we run ads for more than 30 e-commerce advertisers in Europe and the US. We work mid to large e-commerce, so we don't really work with a small element, small segment, but we don't work with the huge companies either. So we're flat in the middle of the companies that actually where we can have a little bit of an impact and people actually care about Google Ads. So click. So today we're going to talk about a tool for every task, our jobs as marketers, and why that has anything to do with talking about Performance Max and standard shopping. Then we're going to talk about the advantages of PMax, the advantage of standard shopping, and then we'll talk about and get into the meat of the thing, like 4 scenarios for PMax, 7 scenarios for standard shopping, where we use either campaign type or a combination of them. At the end, we'll do a Q&A. I'll try to be on the lookout for questions throughout this entire section. So if you have any questions, just reach out. I'll try to be on the lookout for them. Otherwise, we'll take them all at the end. So without further ado, I have a thing in marketing that not all revenue is created equal. And the reason is, like, if we're looking at a slide like this, we have, let's say this is a Performance Max campaign or any campaign for them or Google Ads account. If we're looking at it and we're seeing that, hey, we have $75,000 in brand spend and $300,000 brand revenue, and we have 25,000 in spend on non-brand and 125,000 on non-brand spend, then it doesn't, like, that revenue is not the same as if this was a pure non-brand campaign. So not all revenue is created equal, and that's really what I wanted to go into this conversation actually starting with talking about, because there's a tool for every task. So as a marketer out there, we need to make sure that we work based off what is the highest possible likelihood where we get the best quality of revenue. And if we look at PMax and Google Ads as a whole, especially for e-commerce companies, or only for e-commerce companies, of course, then most of the PMax spend is shopping ads. And most of the highest impact campaign types that you can do. And my mom, that could have been bad. My wife is making coffee in the background, so I don't know if you guys can hear that. But most PMax spend is in shopping ads. 85% of it is in there. So the whole goal of what we're talking about today, how can we actually get more out of the shopping spend? And that's where sometimes the best way to do that is standard shopping. In 2022, when PMax really came out, and then I gave a prediction. I said that PMax was made for Google to sell us this crappy ad inventory on YouTube, on display, all the things that we as marketers go out and spend time saying, let's not spend any time actually trying to do these things and and spend any time going into this low quality ad inventory. For me, it's all spreadsheet math. I had a business a while ago where we had 2,000 customers. One of the things we put in our spreadsheet was, what if we can get every single customer to pay us $50 extra a month to handle their retargeting on Google Ads? That was $100,000 in pure profit every single month. We wouldn't have to do much more. It could be handled by the same people sitting with it. That's an amazing math. Now imagine Google spreadsheet math. And that's where I sit and I go, okay, this is really, really interesting. And if I was Google, I would start doing this. I was wrong back then. This has never happened, but it looks like it's starting to happen. So this was from Smack's data from Q1 and 600 accounts, where they started looking at, okay, what kind of data we're starting to see come in on Google Ads, on Google owned and operated impressions. And just 1 second. There you go. That's a little bit better. So yeah, it's starting to happen, and I think it's the reason why I bring it up is because I think it's something that we have to start being more concerned about, and something that we have to be more focused on. Because I think the PMAX that we saw originally has morphed over to this thing where we're primarily only spending on shopping ads, and that was never the idea from Google's side. This is not the best ratio that Google wants PMAX to be in. They want to spend more on display, more on YouTube, but they need to everybody get on the bandwagon with PMAX first. So I just want everybody to be on the lookout for when this starts happening, because that's really where some of these scenarios we're talking about today can be more relevant. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we'll talk about some advantages for PMAX. One is supposedly a stronger bidding algorithm. You don't tinker as much. There's a preference in the ad auctions that's not verified, so please don't take this as that's what it is. I'll debunk that in a second. There's a single campaign for ROAS targets and budgets. There's expansion to search ads, and then there's expansion to display and video ads. So going through these one by one. So supposedly there is a better and stronger bidding algorithm in PMAX. I tend to disagree with that as a whole. The part that where there is a stronger bidding algorithm, that can be related to whenever I talk to product leads, this is what they say. They say that the amount of data that comes into a PMAX campaign across different placements, so again, across YouTube, across display, across search, across shopping, creates an environment that Google can use to bid better for display and get full value from that, full value from video, full value from search, full value from shopping. And in my opinion, that's just not correct. The problem that happens here, in my opinion, is that we end up seeing this is that most of us use feed only, and most of us don't get a lot of spend in any of the others. So I don't buy it. As a whole, smart bidding is still a super strong platform, super strong bidding algorithm, and that Google would completely say no to any bidding algorithm or their main bidding algorithm. Say, okay, now we're not working on that. Well, e-commerce is not it's not the biggest spender on Google Ads. Like that, they would just say, oh, now we're ignoring that entire smart bidding. Would not make any sense. So you don't tinker as much. I see it's a huge advantage with PMAX. So not being able to make changes to an account actually means that it can enhance performance if you make mistakes in not adding negative keywords or adding the wrong negative keywords. If you work with ad group ROAS targets, which we see people do all the time, and then they forget to change them, and then they only sit and change the campaign level, and then they never notice why we're not hitting our target. So mistakes in excluding products. All of a sudden, hey, this doesn't work, we'll just exclude it, or by mistake they exclude it. So all these things where we can't make as many changes as we used to be able to do simply means that people are not going to go into these things where we are able to target only. Yeah, where we can actually enhance performance by not making any of these mistakes. Let me just move. Can I move myself around, because we have some slides where this is gonna be annoying. Let me just let's just run that for a little bit. So for advertisers making mistakes, you don't tinker as much, so that makes better. So there's a potential preference in the ad auctions. This has not been proven, but we have. Now everybody left, so now I can open the door again. So there might be a potential preference in the ad auctions. It's something that Google reps out there say. It's not been proven, but it might happen one day. I still don't think it's the case today, but there was some thing that happened with responsive search ads, where we simply just saw responsive search ads getting more impressions, and it wasn't because of the fact that you had multiple headlines and stuff like that, but there was definitely something in there. I don't think it's the case today, and I would be really surprised if Google wanted to do this from an EU perspective, running one campaign over the other. I would be very, very surprised to see that. So yeah, I doubt this happens. I doubt that Google reps would even know that it was happening. And if it was, it would be a lot more. We would know it a lot more. I think this argument is mainly just Google reps coming out and trying to force advertisers to push over. So you get a single campaign for ROAS targets and budgets. It might be a thing that you and I don't think about, but some CMOs out there have their Google ads spend be less than 1% of their budget, and then trying to be on search shopping display in YouTube is a big ask. But some just need to spend something on Google and just wants to have campaigns running on all entities. And for me, that sounds like crazy, but Google Ads for some companies is just 1% of their marketing budget, even big companies. So this can be an amazing campaign site for some advertisers. Second one is expansion of search ads. We definitely saw that across the board, that when smart shopping stopped and we started seeing people going into search ads, then with PMax, then people saw a boost. So that's definitely a plus. And I'd even say that the expansion to display and video ads is a massive boost. And I think that some of the biggest arbitrage we can do today is doing more with YouTube and more with display. More focus on YouTube, in my opinion. I think the ad inventory there is amazing. So I think it's a net positive direction that Google is going in. I doubt it will work in this current form. I simply just don't see how we can do upper funnel advertising, which PMax isn't doing anyways, on YouTube and display. And I don't see any magic in doing only retargeting with the same ROAS target across search, shopping, brand, non-brand, and YouTube. I don't see that work. So I doubt it works in the current form, but I think it's a massive good option in general if they can make it work. Then if we go to standard shopping, so the advantage of standard shopping is that you can use portfolio bid strategies. There's full access to search terms. You can access to priority settings. You only show for shopping ads. Brand safety is easier, and you get access to reliable impression share data. So the ability to use bid strategies is still, for me, one of the biggest pulls of standard shopping. We can use shared budgets across multiple campaigns. We can use shared ROAS targets across multiple campaigns. We can set a max bid to lower the waste in the account, and we can set a minimum bid to not drop completely out of the auctions. Then the next thing is, again, full access to search terms. It's getting much better with PMax. I did an analysis on audit of an account the other day, and it was actually pretty good to be able to see, okay, what search terms are in there. So I think that works pretty good, but still quite not the same. For some larger accounts, like say you're spending $1 million a year, then we can still save between 5 to 8% on some search terms that we can categorically say are irrelevant, but as smart bidding continues to spend on. It's much less important today, so the barrier for when this is actually important is a lot higher, but generally I see that you can save 5 to 8%. Access to priority setting, being able to simply say, okay, if 2 products are matching the same search term, then let's show the high priority one first. Again, that could be bestsellers, that can be highest margin, it can be private label, all these things. The priority setting still opens up about 10 campaign structure scenarios that we can use that we simply can't do as well with PMax. You only show for shopping ads. So if you've ever had an issue with waste in display and video, then going in and trust and scale their shopping ads it can be a challenge with using PMax, and that's where standard shopping can really work well. And that's really where the ability to only show for shopping ads, if we want to decrease the ROAS target or increase a budget, then it results in PMax trying out display or YouTube, and it can help us scale. And now that we're not gonna let that one second, because it's gonna. Can I move myself up there? There you go. That's better. We only show for shopping ads. But when let's say we decrease our ROAS target, then PMax will start spending money on display in YouTube, and it can keep us from scaling, or it can make us believe that a decrease in ROAS target isn't a good idea, or an increase in the budget. Okay, well, we increase the budget, we spent more money, but we're not getting any more revenue out of it. Well, it's not because we're spending more money on shopping ads. It's actually perhaps because PMax is trying out display in YouTube. So we can learn the wrong things from some of the tests we're doing. Brand safety is just easier. Like, try convincing an online pharmacy with a very public image that they should just let the AI write your ad copy, show ads on whatever keyword they want, and show ads wherever it wants. That's just like, I can't do that. And so most of us don't have to think about brand safety, but if you do, and in any capacity, PMax is a really difficult thing to work with, in my opinion. Access to impression share data, we don't have that with PMax. For me, this is really, really key, because it allows us to ask the question and answer the question: if we decrease our ROAS, how much more revenue do we expect to achieve? So if we have a 90% impression share, we're not that much. If we're a 60% impression share, then we can actually get quite a lot. And there's other questions. Again, the same thing on decreasing your prices, maximizing shopping ads, and stuff like that. We can actually ask and answer those questions with impression share data that we cannot get with PMax, and we're not getting it. There's ClickShare. It's not the same thing. And as long as Google don't want to give us data across the different placements, again, search, shopping, video, display, which they have categorically said also to me, that is not coming. I've seen some of the future dashboards that are really, really cool, and some of the things are really good, but there is no placement data, and it's not coming. So we have to, again, pull it out via scripts, but Google just don't want to give it to us. I don't know why. So going into the meat of the conversation today, then we'll talk about 4 scenarios for PMax first. So the 4 scenarios that we've listed is a single campaign. That's a single campaign. We'll talk about the accessory products. I just need to move some things around. One second. Accessory products or simple D2C brands, then the performance split, bestsellers, new, sleeper, low ROAS, whatever we call it, and then secondary countries. So all these campaigns are feed only. Like, as I wrote before, I think display video is a positive place. I don't think it's a good place to be right now, unless you're testing it very specifically on your D2C brand. High SKU stores, I don't think it's the right way to go about display video. So if you have a single campaign, whenever we test simple campaign setups where we have a PMax and we have standard shopping, one campaign, they perform similarly. Sometimes PMax does better, sometimes standard shopping does better, but we want to make sure that if PMax suddenly starts improving, gets preference in the ad auctions, or the bidding algorithm is much better, then we can say, okay, we take advantage of that. And we want also, of course, want exposure to Performance Max, especially because there's no advantage of using standard shopping in that case. So again, if you go back to this, like, if you're not using any of the priority settings, then PMax is a better choice than standard shopping. If you have no issues with display video spend, don't create complexity where there isn't any necessary. And PMax is a safe choice. Standard shopping doesn't have anything extra to offer you. If you have no use of priority settings, you have no issues with display video, then I'd say just go with PMax. It is a better choice because you have no advantages of moving to standard shopping. Same thing if you're a simple D2C brand. Again, you're most likely using a single campaign or splitting it up in an accessory product and a hero product and some of these things. There's no need to overcomplicate things, and there's no need to use standard shopping if you're not using any of the features in standard shopping. Then the next thing is, like, again, we go back into dynamic performance campaign structure, where we have these bestsellers and all this stuff. So this can be done with standard shopping well, but again, it's not always necessary. Again, if we go back to the thing, if you haven't seen any issues with display video spend, we're not using the priority setting, which we don't do with dynamic campaign structure most of the time, then this is also an option. And again, the whole idea with the dynamic performance structure is to, if we look at the slide to the charts, then bestsellers or top scores in this case account for 80% of the revenue, but only 30% of the spend, where low ROAS or saboteurs, they account for 47% of the spend and only 4% of the revenue. We're never getting these charts to be perfect, but there is something to be said about trying to maneuver them around. And that's where the PMAX structure of saying, okay, we have bestsellers, they account for 80% of revenue, we set a profitable ROAS target, and they're not dragged down with the low ROAS of the saboteurs. So we're able to get a higher impression share, we're able to get push bestsellers much harder into Google Ads auctions because the other products are not being pushed down. Then we have another category with low ROAS, anything that has a sub-profitable ROAS over the last 30 days. Just apply a break-even ROAS to them at a limited budget. They need some spend so we don't limit ourselves forever and ever. New products, don't always have to use them. Sleepers, don't always have to use them. Can be categorized together, some of these things. Biggest thing is trying to make a split for bestsellers and low ROAS. If you have secondary countries, we spend a lot of time managing 1 to 3 main countries and then a whole list of secondary countries that never really, we're just there and hoping for one day they'll start becoming better. In those cases, we will use Performance Max because they have both search and shopping, and it allows us to simplify. I like simplifying everything that we do, and I think that all of us should be simplifying everything we do. A dozen campaigns across a dozen countries will just waste a bunch of time. If you spend this $5,000 a month, there's very low impact you can do with setting and optimizing and some of the things you can do from standard shopping. So you can't optimize it enough to actually be worth managing it. So stay simple. And the last advantage of doing this is just to aggregate the data, splitting 150 conversions a month across a couple of search and shopping campaigns. Again, you're not getting a lot of data. So that's where, again, let's use the fact that PMAX aggregates this data to an advantage. So again, we go back to this thing. Let's look at the features. Let's look at the options that we have. Let's look at what PMAX provides that's really well and say, let's use that. And that's what we're doing here. So going to scenarios for standard shopping. So we have 7 scenarios. So impression share versus POAS or ROAS maximization. We usually do this from when we're tracking profit in accounts. Then we do on sale versus not on sale. Then we do keyword split. It still works. It's a little bit of an oldie, but we're not using it for the same reasons we used to. So stay tuned for that one. Brand term split. Everybody should be doing this anyways. Private label versus reseller. In category bestseller. So that's a different take on the bestseller split. And then if you've seen display video waste, standard shopping is a way to remove any waste with display and video. So the first thing, search impression share versus POAS maximization. The goal here is to stop smart bidding from increasing bids and products with diminishing returns. So let's say we have an example where we have a search impression share of 92%, our POAS is 250%, and we're looking at, that's good. But let's say you have a target of 200% in that campaign. Google might start saying, let's increase the search impression share because we can actually bid higher based on the POAS. In this case, moving from 92 to 96%, it's not worth it, but we've just lost a third of our profit from that product. I can assure you that volume wasn't high enough. And that's where we as marketers have to start working on, okay, where do we get more out of this? Where do we get the biggest leverage? And that's where we went out and we created a way to actually structure this. So the way we do this is that we pull data with Supermetrics or Data Slayer. We'll create formulas for high and low POAS, high and low impression share. I'll show you this in a minute. We'll import it to Merchant Center, target campaign, custom labels in campaigns, and then we'll set an individual target for each campaign. So we'll create one. Yeah, we'll take next slide. We'll create one campaign for low impression share, and we'll create another one for high impression share and high POAS. And then simply just pulled into a Google sheet where all this data is pulled in through Data Slayer, and then there we go. And then we pull in, and then we start creating formulas. So we'll have search impression share and POAS. Search impression share is still the same. This is still the raw data. The POAS in this case is a formula. And then we have the POAS class and an impression share class. So is it high or is it low, based on the input that we have. and then the combined class. And then we simply just have a rule formula. ChatGPT can help you do this. We simply say, should this go into high target campaign or should it go into main target campaign? Because if we're 93%, 96% in this case, 96% impression share in the top one and a 237% POAS, there is no need for us to push harder. But we want to push harder if we have a low impression share and we have a good POAS. So that's the way that this is structured, and it's worked really, really well to push more volume in terms of profit. Next setup is if it's on sale versus regular price. So especially if you're using any type of grouping system when you are pushing campaigns or pushing products on sale. So let's say week 1 you have group A on sale, week 4 to 6 you have group B, etc., etc., etc. So you're kind of rotating what products are on sale at all times. What you'll see is that once a product's on sale, it'll have a 5% conversion rate. It'll have a high conversion rate, and then when it goes off. When it goes back to regular price, it's just going to drop in terms of conversion rate. And smart bidding doesn't know this. It's still going to look at the historical data and it's still going to spend money on it. So if you're having this rotating, then you're always going to have this slump when it changes, and you're going to have the slump when you're always going to have a slump when it changes. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to go, okay, let's have 2 campaigns, one for products on sale, where we have a target ROAS 500%. We'll have a minimum CPC of $1.50, and we put in a high priority campaign. This idea is to increase spend proactively on historical low performers, and we'll do the same for regular price. So when a product goes from having a minimum CPC of 1.5 on sale, then we want to have a max CPC of 1.5 on regular price. So we tell Google, you can't spend more than this. Even if ROAS was 600% in the last 3 weeks on this product, then we know that moving forward, it's going to decrease the ROAS. The ROAS is going to be lower. So you can't, on these products, you can't spend more than this. I love this split for a lot of e-commerce stores. You can also do this with, you can technically also do this with a PMAX split. You just can't get access to minimum and maximum CPCs, which can be a little bit of difficulty to work with. Then there's a keyword split. It's not for the good old reasons. So a keyword split, we used to bid higher for groups of keywords. That was typically high converting. So again, you say brands, products, long tail. But today we use it differently. Today we use it for new accounts. We use it to lower ROAS for top funnel searches. We use it to run for specialty products. So if you're a new account, then smart bidding simply just doesn't know what it's supposed to do. And especially if you're starting to slowly grow it, you can get very, very bad search term matches. So simply saying, okay, we know that we want to be shown for these search terms, but not as much for these, or we don't know how well these will perform. We'll create a keyword split where we'll simply just say we'll bid higher for one group than the other, and then use that for 1 to 3 months, get enough data in, and then boom, we can switch it over to smart bidding and just group it all together, because now there's enough search term data for smart bidding to know what it is that they're supposed to be how it's supposed to be bidding. Then we can lower ROAS for a top funnel search. So let's say you're selling shoes. Shoes might not convert that well, but it might be a high volume. And in some cases, if we're trying to grow, taking some of these top funnel searches in and going, we're going to be there, but we can be there at a lower ROAS, and we can control the spend on it in terms of ramp up in different periods of the year. So again, some search terms are fine, and this way we can actually use that split to run that. And then if smart bidding keeps effing up, so we have a specialty store that sells like this very particular type of chair in the US, and we keep getting shown up for the wrong searches. Like, we have a specialty chair and it gets shown for office chair. We remove office chair and then it gets shown for X chair, which is a brand of chair, of office chair. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. So this is a combination of the special product and it's a new account. So we give it guardrails. We create a keyword split and say, these are the terms that if somebody's searching for anything related to our product and they're in there, then we want to bid really high. We want to give some signals to Google. So that in those cases, the keyword split can work really well. And then there's just the brand split. Like, if you want to have your brand term excluded, you want to run it in a standard shopping. like running two PMAX campaigns isn't clean. You'll do it like non-brand and brand. One has like the non-brand has brand excluded. You have a low ROAS target for that one. You have a higher ROAS target for the brand PMAX. You'll still potentially see your non-brand highest ROAS terms go into your brand campaign. So that lowers your non-brand ROAS, and PMAX can lower your overall volume over time. So you start running into an issue. So again, the goal here is simply just, again, add a standard shopping for your brand terms. It's the cleanest way. It's the best way. And you 100% have to do this. Private label versus reseller brands. This is perhaps one of my best splits for e-commerce stores that have private label products, because you go out and you create a private label product based on the categories that you see selling from other brands. And the whole goal here is that they have better margins, so they need different targets. Different margins and different ROAS targets. And a lot of time you'll sell brands in that category already. So let's say you're selling shorts. You have your own shorts and you have reseller shorts. Well, you still want to have both show, but you just want to split it up. So in this example, we have somebody searching for, let's say we're selling pizza making equipment. So somebody searching for pizza stone, what we'll typically want to have a high priority campaign for private label with a low ROAS, and then we want to have a reseller campaign with a higher ROAS on a medium priority. That's telling Google that if somebody's searching for a more generic term, then it falls into private label campaigns. Often this is like a keyword like a pizza stone. It's generic, it's a category. It doesn't convert as well as a brand or a model. So that's where we want to expose the majority of our private label products in. And then in the reseller, it's brands, it's models. If somebody's searching for one of these specific products that we're reselling, then they fall in there. So an example here again, pizza stone, pizza steel for barbecue falls into the private label campaign. And then on the reseller side, KitchenAid, pizza stone, someone's searching for a brand, or Uni 12 P8090, again, searching for a very specific product number. That has nothing to do with our private label. The priority setting allows us to make this switch in a safe way. The next campaign structure for standard shopping is in category bestsellers. So let's say very often when we create a bestseller split, we'll just do it blanketly across all products in a store. But if you have a high SKU count in the store, then it doesn't work. Because what we're trying to do with traditional bestseller split is, if again we go back to if two products match a search term, then we want to prioritize the bestseller. The challenge here is that sometimes there's always some spend going into non-bestsellers, and if we do it, and we don't want that to be tested. So traditional bestseller split, in this case, let's say we just take top 20 products in the store, then we have out of those 20, 16 of those are t-shirts, because we're mainly a t-shirt store. But if I have a lot of different categories, what I want in-category bestsellers. So instead of just taking top 20 across your entire account, I want top 5 or top 3 or top 10 or whatever in the individual categories, because t-shirts are not competing with sweatshirts, pants are not competing with underwear, etc., etc. So if somebody's searching for a t-shirt, we want to show one of our top 5 t-shirts. When we have an example like the one over here, then we're only showing one sweatshirt. We're only showing two pair of pants and only one pair of shorts. But we need top 5. That's where we go out and somebody's searching for a t-shirt or shorts or something like that. Then we make sure we show the bestseller, because here we have no exposure to joggers, with no exposure to linen, underwear, polo, shorts. And that can actually enforce saying, okay, t-shirts are now continues to be our best sellers, because we're not using our split to actually work within these categories. Everything else is not a top 5 in a category, goes into a lower priority campaign, still works. If somebody's searching, again, we go back to this thing. If somebody's searching for something very specific, it still gets exposure. We still get sales from them. But again, if somebody's searching for something very specific, like here, somebody's searching for best kitchen blender, fall into the best sellers. We show one of our top 5. If somebody's searching for a specific model and it's not a bestseller, it gets shown through to everything else because it matches better. It has to be subcategories. It can't be clothing. That doesn't work. We have to find the lowest category. Typically, it is for us. We typically go as far down as we can into the category structure or taxonomy on an account on a website to find these. And then, of course, last but not least, if you experience any waste in display or video ads, then I also think that standard shopping works. There's, in my opinion, and based on what we're seeing, there's not a huge difference if you have a feed-only Performance Max and a standard shopping. So if your feed-only Performance Max is producing some kind of waste that you can't control, or it's holding you from, keeping you from scaling, then running standard shopping might be a good idea. And the whole issue we're seeing is that if you increase the budget, or decrease ROAS, then Google will try to spend some of that sweet. Let's try to spend some money on the ad inventory and display on YouTube. Let's just try it out. Let's hope it works this time. And that's not how it works in most cases. And again, if display or video in PMax is working for you, then this is not a scenario that works for you. Then you should 100% stay in PMax. But if you're seeing waste in display or video with PMax, then that's not what we want. So when we decrease our ROAS or increase the budget, we want higher volume from shopping ads. We want to start showing for terms we're not showing for before because it wasn't profitable. And we want to ramp up spend before sale or increase seasonality. On the other hand, we don't want PMax to gamble. We don't want them to use experimental spend from display. We don't want to try spending on keywords in search. We want shopping ads. And we don't want to spend it on budget on retargeting or other non-incremental ads. Like we said before, not all revenue is created equal. If I'm trying to get higher volume and scale in e-commerce store, I want more shopping spend. I want more exposure to newer customers. I do not want spend on retargeting. Maybe I do. But in most cases, I don't. That's why I like to control how much spend goes on retargeting in different campaigns, because, again, not all revenue is created equally. And a good example of this, I audited this last week. We couldn't figure out why the heck is this PMax campaign doing so much better than the rest. Again, it's like 3 to 6 times the ROAS or the POAS on this campaign. The further we went and looked, it was all engaged views. I suspect it's all engaged views for, for retargeting, because it was the only campaign that had this setting set up, and it didn't have any shopping spend in it. And again, an engaged view conversion is somebody who's watched 10 seconds of a YouTube video and then converted. The problem here, and I like the overall metric, the problem here when that's combined with retargeting, because I have once audited about 9 months ago. I audited a B2B supply, like a B2B store. They were selling supplies to scaffolding and construction sites. They had YouTube running well, and I was like, "That's amazing! How can you sell this on YouTube?" And then when I went in and looked, all the conversions were engaged views. And then when I looked at the channels, I looked and said, okay, this is kids channels. So basically it was the kids using their parents' device to watch YouTube, and they were seeing the ad, they didn't skip, and then the parent converted anyways without ever seeing it. So that's why I'm very hesitant to, without knowing whether or not this is a retargeting view or not, especially for large well-known brands, without knowing whether or not this is a retargeting audience that people are being shown to and what placements we're actually showing this to, I cannot put a lot of weight into engaged views. You can also see here like 15,000, less than 10% of the revenue from this campaign came from actual clicks, and those were more related to the search aspect of it when I did the analysis. So I don't believe that there's one best way to do anything anymore. I don't think that that's the right way to look at it. I think that there are tools for the job, and those tools vary over time. Like the impression share versus POAS example I gave, like that used to be a desktop versus mobile campaign split, where we have campaigns in mobile and desktop, so we could run smart bidding at different volumes because they converted differently. We don't do those anymore. So all these things, like I say, campaign structure is always a reflection of your strategy. And PMax is not the only way to do a strategy for an account. And it shouldn't be the only way you're running your account. Standard shopping shouldn't be the only way either. So I highly advise, go in, look at what business aspect, what things work in your, what factors are applied in your account, and then apply the right campaign type. So yeah, that was it for me. We're going to jump over to Q&A in a second. If you need anything, we grow Google Ads for e-commerce stores across Europe. We typically want you to choose if you want the best from in-house and an agency at the same time. So anytime you need anything from Google Ads perspective, just hit me up, Andrew at Savvy Revenue. If you want to chat about standard shopping, if PMax is the best option, please just reach out. We have these conversations all the time. So going into questions. Soren asks, that spreadsheet, where is the data from? That was related to the impression share thing. We pulled that in from, we use Supermetrics, but Dataslayer can also do it. You cannot get that info from PMax. It's simply it's not accessible in there at all. So it's only something that's accessible from standard shopping. Remy asks, wouldn't another good rule for using PMax be if you get decent, great creatives, then go for it? I wouldn't say decent. I would say it goes back into whether or not you get anything out of adding those creatives. I see way too many agencies and in-house people go in and saying, we just add these videos and these creatives, and then when I actually look at how much spend goes into it, there isn't any spend going into it. Because they don't perform, and which makes perfect sense for a lot of different businesses. A lot of businesses on Google Ads in e-commerce, especially high SKU stores, you don't have you're not built for display. You're not built for YouTube. A DTC brand, on the other hand, is very different, and that's where potentially it can be very good to say, okay, let's try to say, okay, if we run PMax, no brand in there, which is absolutely important for a DTC brand. No brand in there, and we add some good creatives, then let's see how much do we actually get out of video and display placements. That can work, definitely. So yeah. What splits would you do in standard shopping campaigns on campaign level versus accurate level? Miguel, if you can ask that question again with more context. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Splits are only done on a campaign level, so just specify what you want on the accurate level. Miha and Dan both ask, is there still a way to create feed-only PMax campaigns? Yes, there is, and it's an ongoing myth that you can't do it. So just go in, you add it, you don't add the other assets. If you're having issues doing it when you create your first campaign or create a new campaign or in existing campaigns, if you're having issues removing the assets, create a new asset group. If you create a new campaign and it's asking, and you can't avoid adding the assets, create a new asset group within that same PMax, and you get the option. It's definitely working. Kids channels on YouTube is a problem. It's a huge problem. And I don't understand why Google don't try to do more for it. There's no value in advertising for kids, and there is a huge opportunity with AI or just general machine learning and self-categorization in YouTube for kids to be, okay, let's remove this. Hans asks, what's your opinion on PMax for lead gen? My very, very blunt opinion on it is, I think I have no idea why anybody would ever use Performance Max for lead gen. It's basically like you're saying, so for lead gen, you're primarily running based on search ads, and then maybe have some display working. It's basically saying, let's take it's like saying that DSA can do better than creating manual campaigns. And again, DSA today, the way it's structured and the way it's built and the way that it's structured inside of PMax today, I have a comment on that in a second, then it uses your titles from your website to match with the search term. That it uses as a headline in your ads. And that's the problem that arrives there, is that's a limiting factor, because you have to be continuously testing on your landing pages and on your ad copy for lead gen to make sure you get the right in there. So you're hitting a ceiling really quickly with PMax for lead gen. You generally don't want to be shown on display on YouTube for lead gen. Typically it doesn't work. So Going into a PMAX setting where you do that, I don't see that working at all. Yeah, I don't see that working at all. Let me ask, is there any other smart practical ways of splitting a standard shopping campaign besides adding negative search terms? Yes, all the things that we mentioned so far. But if we go back to just one thing, it's the priority setting. So if we're using the priority setting, then in category bestsellers is one. We put all the bestsellers in a high priority and all the non-bestsellers in a low priority campaign. If you have, again, private label, you have private label in the high ROAS and a low priority for the resellers, so that you make sure that, okay, we first and foremost want to show our private label product. But if anybody searches for anything specific to the reseller product that we're doing, then that gets shown instead. So that's basically everything that we have in here. Is when can we actually do these like splits? That's not just negative keywords. Negative keywords is very, like, for instance, with the keyword split, I think we have 1 or 2 accounts running on it out of the 30 that we're running right now. So that's not something we use a lot, but we use it in very specific situations where we need to do something to help smart bidding do better. Standard Cosmetics asks, we run a price competitive split with PMAX at 8 ROAS, but the performance seems random. Our previous campaign was just one feed-only campaign, which had 18x ROAS. Any tips on better splits? When I like for price comparison, what I like to do is you can do PMAX or standard shopping. But for PMAX, I would want to have a price competitive. So you have a price competitive split, you already have it. I would try to see how can you, you're limited with what you can do, because again, it depends a little bit on how much the products jump from being a competitive price and a non-competitive price. So that can be an issue. Also, like how much budget there is. The more budget ceiling there is in a PMAX campaign, the more likely it is that it's going to jump into display and video. I would most likely in this case run standard shopping and then just put one campaign with products that don't convert well, whatever price level that is. For some, you have to be at the same price as your competitors or lower. For some, it's 5% higher or lower. For others, it's 10% higher or lower than your competitors. And then conversions just drop off a cliff. So you need to go and use custom labels to find where that drop off is, and then run just 2 different campaigns, put a max CPC on the higher priced item. So it either higher, max CPC I tend to like, because that limits products when they go from being a competitive price to a non-competitive price. If you did a price competitive split, and like in this case is that now is at an 8x ROAS, how long ago was it potentially? It could be an issue with simply just enough data. So if you don't have enough data, let's say you're only having 300 conversions a month, then splitting that up into multiple PMAX campaigns can actually hurt more than it helps, because when you have a price, when your product is priced well, then that's directly a sign, like it will convert better, and it's then a signal to smart bidding to bid higher for it. And vice versa. That reaction is something that when you create a split is something you're trying to have happen faster. But that can actually work against you if you're splitting too few conversions up into multiple campaigns. So you can be effing things up. I can't see here if the new campaigns are also feed only. Otherwise, I would 100% have them feed only. Go back to the ad group level. You can have ROAS targets and ad group levels. So when would you do that, and when would you do it on campaign level? So I never use ad group level ROAS targets. I can never see the sense in doing that, because if I want to run a different ROAS target for a specific ad group, I will typically have it in its own campaign. Like Otherwise, I start micromanaging the smart bidding, and then it's another signal where's what's supposed to be and like how much should the ROAS be. So I've never seen success with running ad group level ROAS targets. So we generally don't do them unless it's very, very specific cases. But yeah, we'll generally not do it. We'll create a campaign structure that allows us to do across overall. And then, Johan, how can you strike a balance between showcasing all products effectively while also highlighting your top performers? That is exactly what we did here with the in-category bestsellers or any bestseller split, because priority is a nudge. It's something we're nudging the advertiser, the Google, the smart bidding to do. It's not a only show this or only show this, or only show everything. Then the high priority is a nudge to say, if two products match the same search term, then prioritize the products in the high priority campaign. So in order to, this is exactly what this split does. And again, this doesn't have to be top 5 in category. It can also just be a traditional bestseller split. This does it really, really, really well. You can also do it from a traditional bestseller, non-bestseller split in PMax if you do it correctly. Where you're simply just grouping the two products together. If there aren't any more questions, then I think we are about to be at the end. So I just thank everybody for coming in. It was great talking about PMax and Standard Shopping. And again, if you have any questions about it, just reach out to me, andrew@savvyrevenue.com, and we'll talk about, and we'll have a discussion about PMax and Standard Shopping. Thank you.